to make sure that I am actually online. Here we are. Alrighty. Can't do my live through actual YouTube, so I have to do it through OBS, which I didn't really want to do, but here we are. Anyway, Christopher here with the Lunchroom Syndicate, reacting once again to the Jacksonville Jaguars winning. That's right, the Jaguars won another game in handy fashion, 38-10 over the San Diego, Los Angeles Chargers in a game that honestly didn't even feel that close at times. The Jags absolutely dominant, and it was nice to see. It was nice to see. But yeah, I mean, look, after last week's win, a lot of people would sit there and be like, oh, it's oh, they just beat the Colts, and the Colts, Jags always beat the Colts in Jacksonville, and the Colts were this, and the Colts were that. But this win feels a lot more legit. This game feels a lot more okay. Now you have me thinking a bit. The utter domination in all categories in this game. I know Justin Herbert was hurt. I'm not underselling that fact. But man, did the Jags look good in this game. Was it just offensively? Was it just defensively? It was all around. 413 total yards of 312. They ran 75 plays. The Chargers 58. Some of that was garbage time for the Chargers. 151 rushing to only 26 for the Chargers. The Jags were 8 for 15 on third downs. The Chargers were 5 for 13. A little high, but some of that was late in the game. The Jags were also 2 for 3 on fourth down. They had 25 first downs to 16 for the Chargers. The Jags averaged 5.5 yards per play. The Chargers are 5.4. They weren't terrible, but another big difference here is the Jags forced 2 more turnovers on back-to-back drives. They had time possession battle 38 minutes to 21 and a half, 38 and a half to 21 and a half basically. And the Jags only had 2 penalties this game compared to 7 by the Chargers, which cost them 54 yards. I could be nitpicky on some negative stuff if I really wanted to be, but I don't want to be, because this game, last week I felt like I could find more faults and it didn't feel as sustainable, obviously. But this week, to go on the road where they've lost 18 in a row, to go to the West Coast where they rarely ever win in their franchise history, let alone against the Chargers, who they've never beat on the road, whether it was in San Diego or Los Angeles, and to just thoroughly dominate them the way that they did on all sides of the ball is impressive. Trevor Lawrence, 262 and 3 TDs. James Robinson had 17 for 100 yards at TD, including a 50-yard bomb of a run on 4th and 1 that was damn near untouched, if not untouched, showing that he does have some speed. Zay Jones had 10 receptions in this game for 85 yards. Christian Kirk had a touchdown. Marvin Jones had a touchdown in this game. Christian Kirk had another 72 yards to go with it on 6 catches. That contract doesn't look so bad now, does it? And then added 3 catches of his own for 30 yards, along with 45 yards rushing. No touchdowns for him in this game, but his rushing average wasn't great, but he definitely got better as the game wore on. Like I said, the Jags forced back-to-back turnovers in the first half that ultimately resulted in 10 points. That was great. I would like to see some more pressure maybe, but honestly, I'm pretty okay with the way this went. It's hard to sack Justin Herbert, and they were getting pressure on him. It wasn't like they weren't getting pressure. Sometimes sacks can be a bit misleading, or lack thereof, because you can still be getting pressure, and that causes things to happen as well. But yeah, 38 to 10. The Jags become the second team. I don't remember exactly in a long time, since like 1990 or maybe even before that, to be an underdog and win back-to-back games by more than 24 points. They're only the second team to ever do that. I don't even know. There are things I could say. As I said, there are things I'm nitpicking. The one thing that I'm going to say, and it's been a bit of a troubling trend with this team this year, is I'd like to see more touchdowns over field goals, especially in the red zone. They had 3 more field goals that ultimately came inside the 5. I know 2 of those, they got down to the 5 on third down. They kicked the field goal anyway. Fair, but one just absolutely terrible sequence after the interception, where they had first and goal from the 5 and didn't gain a yard. They ran Zay Jones on the end around, which didn't go anywhere, and then they threw 2 incomplete passes. Neither time trying to give the ball to James Robinson, who was a beast in this game, or Travis Etienne, who ran pretty well, even though his average isn't there. That's the second time in this season that sequence has happened that I know of. The first time against Washington, that did cost us the game, because that was a 4-down game, and another field goal or 2. But Jags did kick the field goal there. Ultimately, they didn't have to worry about not scoring in the red zone or scoring touchdowns. I do want to see more of that, but Jags end up scoring more touchdowns later on anyway, so it's irrelevant. That's for coaches to figure out, as they look through the game film this season or this week, on the things that they want to nitpick on. That's the coach's job, kind of nitpick. You know what I mean? Man, this was a thorough domination, and it really puts the Jags on the map a bit. So one thing to do it last week against the Colts. Everyone knew the stats. 8 in a row now against the Colts at home. They always seem to beat the Colts at home. They seem to have their number. Blah, yada, yada. The Colts look old. Colts beat the Chiefs today. Must not be that bad, right? But either way, you heard it, and then this week, with all the negative history that is surrounding this game, to just thoroughly dominate the Chargers the way they did, really puts them on notice. And that's something that going forward the Jags are gonna have to keep in mind, because they're not gonna sneak up on people when you do. When you win 2 games like that back to back against teams that are wanting to make the playoffs, teams are gonna know. Teams are gonna take notice. Teams aren't gonna take you lightly. It's no longer, the Jags are an easy win. It's, the Jags, they're gonna beat us up, so we need to be ready to go. But what does that mean going forward? Well, that means that the Jags are still 2-1, which also means they're still in the lead in the AFC South. Unfortunately, the Titans and Colts both got wins. As I mentioned about the Colts, they beat the Chiefs on basically a last-second touchdown, screwing my survivor up. Damn. And the Titans held on to win against the Raiders. Titans almost blowing another lead. But it's a good thing for the Jags, to bank these 2 early wins. They could easily be 3-0 right now. They definitely had a very winnable game against Washington, but the road streak's gone. There's no more excuses with that. This team looks... I think that's the biggest thing. I watch a lot of this game, which, last first 2 weeks I didn't get to watch a ton of it. And that's the 2 things that I will say in this is, it didn't just look like the Jags beat up on a bad team because they were a bad team too. It looked like the Jags were the good team. They were fully... They were well coached. There was so little mental errors. Yeah, there was 2 deep balls that happened. It is what it is. That's going to happen in today's NFL. It just looked like they didn't have a lot of mental miscues in this game, and that's huge when you're looking at it. And the offseason head coaching search was a bit of a disaster in terms of the process, but we ultimately got a really good coach. We should have got this from the get-go, and Doug Peterson, obviously Super Bowl winning head coach. And yeah, it's through 3 weeks. It's still super early. You never know what can happen. I think after last week, I was a lot more reserved on the future of Jacksonville, or for the season, I should say, because there was a lot, all that stuff I said earlier. Plus, still the Jags, and You know, they need to win on the road. They need to beat Houston. They need to beat Tennessee, two teams they have just unbelievably hard time beating. You know, and a lot of those things still hold true, but a win like that gives you a little bit of hope. It gives you a little bit of, you beat an NFL team back-to-back weeks. You beat NFL teams by more than 20. You're doing something right, even if you're playing the two worst teams in the league. And these weren't two of the worst teams in the league. They might have been injury filled, but the Colts and Chargers have playoff aspirations, and in some cases maybe potentially even Super Bowl aspirations, at least expectations preseason. Whether those were grossly overstated or not, it's irrelevant here. But the Jags weren't one of those teams, and now they're 2-1 with two good wins and two important wins for tiebreaker purposes too. That's a big deal, and you know. Again, we have a long way to go. There's still 15 games in the season. You never know what's going to happen. The Jags schedule gets pretty brutal about midway through. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in a second, about the Jags' future opponent, including next week's opponent. A couple other things I want to touch on. Evan Ingram only had one catch. I could have swore he had more. He felt like he was all kind of all over the game. But he did have that one catch overturned, which... I don't know if it's maybe I'm being biased, but I felt like I don't understand how could that be overturned. And I'll say this, if you want to be like, well, you're biased, so of course you're not going to say it. If it was called the other way, I would say you can't overturn it either. It was close. It was a bang situation. Seemed, I don't know. Indisputable evidence. You know what does that mean? Apparently, sometimes it means not what I think it means. Talking about the Chargers a little bit here, I don't want to say they're in crisis mode because that would be wrong, but I don't know why they're not trusting Eckler much anymore. Last year, Eckler had 20 total TDs, which is absolutely insane. They had a ton of yards, and it just seems like this year they're just not using him as much. They don't want to use him. He only had 4 carries in this game for 5 yards. He has not had a lot of rushing. He did end up with 8 catches for 48 yards. A lot of that is in garbage time. I know Herbert's injured, and Herbert likes to go deep, and that's a part of it, but Eckler's a player, man. Use him. Don't, you know, there's 3 straight weeks now that they're doing something interesting with, and not in a good way with him, and now they're 1-2. Maybe, you know, that's all I'm going to say about that. You know, I'm not saying that's their only issue. Again, they lost by 28 today, so obviously they just had breakdowns all over the place, but... And that's the other thing. You know, the Jags really didn't have much in the way of big plays in this game outside of the 50-yard run. The longest pass play was only 35 yards. And the conception, you had the 50-yard run, but the Jags were methodical. Third down, not a problem. Fourth down, didn't get third down. Sometimes we'll go on fourth down. I know they missed one fourth down, but they still went for it 2 other times and got them both. And fortune favors the bold. And you know, the Jags the Jags drives today were insane, and that's something that I noticed in preseason, and even in game 1 was last year. It just seemed like the Jags went 3 out a lot. You know, it just seemed like they couldn't do anything. I noticed that they were moving the ball. Even if they weren't scoring, they were moving the ball. Now, last week I said, you know, I'd like to see the Jags not go 3 and out a ton, because in the late in third, fourth, they seemed like they went 3 or 4 and out every drive after a certain point. They didn't do this in this game. The only true 3 and out drive they had was when they got the ball at the 5-yard line. They ended up going 4 plays, which that 4th play was a field goal. They got the field goal on. But the first play was 6 play, 36 yards. They got all the way down to 39. Yeah, weird. You know, 4th and 5 from the 39 of your opponents is kind of a weird spot if you don't have a great kicker. You don't trust your kicker from long distance. And the Jags probably don't, because they don't really have a great kicker. Patterson's been pretty good, actually, this season. He has made a couple 50-yarders, I do believe, but so 4th and 5, they went for it, didn't get it. End up not killing them on the opening drive, because the Chargers went 3 and out. The next drive, the Jags, you know, they started a little slow, but it wasn't a 3 and out drive. They got 5 plays. Nothing special, but it was.
They move the pocket to the right side. They throw it to Kirk near the pylon, and he's in for a touchdown. Touchdown, Jaguars. And they go up 19, and the crowd here at SoFi is not happy as you hear the boos.
Yeah, the boo birds are well out in this moment.
Then they got the pick on one play. It was a 4 and out. Then they got the fumble.
What if you were a
right after
global
that
energy company with customers in different places on different systems? So you call in IBM and Red Hat to create an open hybrid cloud platform. Now data is available anywhere securely. Let's create a hybrid cloud that can change an industry. IBM, let's create.
Lawrence under center, hands it off, bounces over the left side as Robinson. He's got a lane and he is going. He is gone. 5 touchdowns. James Robinson, 50 yards to the house.
Suddenly
and the Jaguars are stunning the Chargers here at SoFi.
But yeah, no, the Jags had that drive after finally the Chargers answered with a hell of a drive. The Jags come back and went 11 plays, 70 yards. This is where I got a little nervous because this was the third time that the Jags got inside the red zone and settled for a field goal already. I'm like, man, that's only 16-7. You'd like to see a touchdown. They didn't get it. They did go 11 plays, 70 yards. It took off over 5 minutes in this game. I think that's part of it. When you're methodical like that, you're taking off a lot of time, a lot of plays. Defenses will wear down. Even the best do. And that's kind of what ended up happening in the second half. Losing Joey Bosa hurt, obviously, and all for defensively for the Chargers. But that second half, after an opening drive field goal where they got a nice deep shot, one of their first deep shots of the game, the Chargers had to settle for a field goal. 4th and goal again. So the Jags kind of did what the Chargers had been doing to them, which was stuffing them in the red zone. And, that's kind of defense. You're going to see a lot of defense in today's game where you don't necessarily care so much between the 20s. It's inside the 20 that matters. You can give up a ton of sacks, or not tons. Sorry, I just saw something. You can give up a ton of yards, but as long as you're stopping in the red zone and holding the field goals, hey man, it takes 3 touchdowns to match 7 field goals. Only 3. So touchdowns matter, obviously. I'm not, and that includes extra points, obviously. I'm not, breaking news with that one, but touchdowns more important than field goals. But sometimes it gets kind of lost how much more important touchdowns are. But so the Jags stopped them right after half, and they went one of their very only quick drives of the game. They went 5 plays for 75 yards. This included the 50-yard run on 4th and 1 on an amazingly designed run play, off tackle / on the outside. Man, that play was amazing. Huge hole, pulling guard. When it's 4th and 1, sometimes those outside runs work, and then sometimes you gotta get the blocks. But obviously it was pretty clear the Chargers were expecting a run up the middle, and man, they got burned badly. That was I'm pretty sure it was untouched. I can't quite remember in my head, but man, that was a beauty. And James Robinson showing speed on that run too. Next play, the Chargers, and this is going 3 and out here is killer. After the Jags just went up 23-10, late in the game. You're getting to it's still early third, but this drive, such a quick 3 and out. If they went down, even got field goal or especially a touchdown, then we have a game. But this drive felt like a bit of a killer on offense for the Chargers, and in a good way for the Jags. And the very next drive, the Jags just said, you know what, we done with this bullshit. The Jags went 14 plays, 60 yards. 60 yards only in 14 plays is absolutely insane. Talk about methodical. They took up 8 minutes and 27 seconds left in this game. And they used mostly the run. They used a lot of runs in this one, and they ended up scoring on a Christian Kirk 4-yard touchdown pass. And at this point, the game was out of hand. It became 31-10. Still some time left for the Chargers, and they did move the ball well. They went 7 plays and 43 yards, but on 4th and 15 at the Jags 20-32. The thing is, they're down by 3 touchdowns. They have to go for it. Easy incompletion. The Jags decided they were done. They were going to waste as much time as possible. This drive was absolutely incredible too. Another 14-play drive and 68 yards for another touchdown. This one over 9 minutes long. So between those two back-to-back drives, the Jags went 8 minutes and 27 seconds and 9 minutes and 10. They went over 15 and a half minutes in 2 possessions. That is insane. That's over a quarter's worth of football. But the Jags just possessed it. If you're the team, you're not winning very much when a team does that and scores touchdowns on those 2 drives. And obviously, this was the final score, made it 38-10. The Chargers got the ball back, went 14 plays. It was basically they were admitting defeat at that point. They weren't exactly going. They weren't really playing up to speed. They were letting the clock wind down. They ended up having a 4th and 5 from the 11 that may have caught, may have not. They ruled it incomplete in the end zone. Jags held on, took some knees, and the game was over. Jags win 38-10, moving their record 2-1, getting the first road win since 2019. First post-COVID road win. Oh man, last time they won on the road was ironically at Oakland. A team that doesn't exist anymore technically. A West Coast team, ironically too. That was their last win. Was at the Oakland Raiders, the then Oakland Raiders. So what's new? What's next? All right, that's where we're at now. Jags. I'm sure Doug Pierce will find some things that he would want to work on. But what is next for the Jags in terms of schedule? Well, the competition ramps up pretty big because they travel to Philadelphia next week. I love how the Jags are playing, but Philadelphia looks like they're just on another level right now. They weren't great offensively. They didn't need to be, but they weren't great offensively against the Commanders today. Although Jalen Hurts still went over 300 yards. The Commanders' defense really played well in that game, actually. Despite kind of their issues, 3 of the 4 quarters, the Eagles had basically went scoreless. And, outside of 1 quarter in the second where the Eagles caught fire, the Commanders played well defensively, even though the Eagles had 400 yards and blah, blah, blah. I know. They didn't play, super well, but outside of that second quarter, Commanders did pretty well to avoid scoring, and that's ultimately what it amounts to. But for the Jags, going into Philadelphia, a Philadelphia team that's 3-0 right now, looks like one of the best teams in the league right now. Going to be really, really difficult game for them. Obviously, I do expect a loss there. My hope is that they, hopefully just, play well. Even if they end up losing, losing to an NFC team isn't the worst thing. We already lost to maybe we can end that streak though, because we have a weird 13 or 17 game losing, or some kind of crazy losing streak against NFC teams too. Jags have a lot of losing streaks going on, or they did. But next week, playing the Eagles is going to be difficult. You got to really be able to contain Jalen Hurts running, but Jalen Hurts passing has been phenomenal this year as well. And the receiving core in Philly right now is slow. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. If they lose, I'm not going to be too heartbroken because a lot of teams are going to lose to Philly this year. We'll just put it that way, unless something happens, obviously. But after that, so even if you think you're going to lose that game, I think the Jags could stay in that game well because their defense is playing pretty decent. But they get up some deep shots, and that's what I'm worried about with this game. Going forward, they have a really good chance at doing some things, at going on a bit of a run here. Because after that, they have the Texans at home. Look, the Jags have struggled in divisional play outside of the home games against the Colts. This is a must-win for them. They want to be taken seriously. They cannot lose games like this. If you want to be known as a good team, losing to the Texans cannot happen. And they haven't won against Houston in a while. So you have to win this game. You have to. Then they travel to Indianapolis again. So they get the Indianapolis game out of the way. Indy's going to look for a bit of revenge. For the Jaguars, it's going to be about keeping their emotions in check. It's a tough road divisional game. Winning that game is important. Get that victory. They can get that. They have the Giants at home. I know the Giants have had a hell of a start. Still not very good. But, the Giants are going to be in games. you can get 3-0 in that. That's a lot. That's asking a lot of this team still. You know, get to 5-2 after 7 weeks. And you know, then you know, you have a shot here. Bank the wins that you need to. I think the Jags are good enough to beat the bad teams on their schedule. They got plenty of them. Bank those wins, because you got some tough ones. You got, you know, the Broncos are a weird team. I don't really know how to describe the Broncos at the moment. The Chiefs are on the road. That's probably going to be an L. They got the Ravens at home. You got the Titans twice, depending on how you feel about them. Those are going to be the divisional game. You know, if the Jags are still in it by the end of the year, those 2 games in week 18 and week 15 and 14 and 18 are going to be the critical ones. But around that, you know, Cowboys probably be good. Jets, Texans again. Look, there's a realistic path here that I didn't think was going to be possible. But the Jags the last 2 weeks have shown me something. Keep it up. You know, next week, going to be a tough week. It's going to be Doug Pearson's return to Philadelphia, ironically, where he won a Super Bowl. And, you know, craziness. And, you know, that's going to be an emotional game just in general. And it's going to be interesting to see. There'll be a lot of talk in that game, obviously. But going forward, you know, Jags, I have more hope. You know, and if, you know, the Jags fall apart, you know, maybe go 5 or 6 wins. This first couple, these first 3 games, don't forget about them. And I don't think the Jags are going to lose a ton of games this year at this point. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But I feel good at this point. Feel good. I don't have crazy expectations. I'm not saying Super Bowl bound. I'm not even saying playoff bound. But the AFC South is bad. Don't forget that. The AFC South's really bad right now. Just saying. You never know. But that will do it for me here with the Lunchroom Syndicate. I am Christopher. Go Jags, baby. 2 in a row. Let's make it 3 next week against those high-flying Eagles. It's going to be a tough one, but let's go Jags. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, for my next React video next week, deuces.